Hey, Hills family, we're here with a sermon recap with Pastor Jason. Man, thank you for sharing.
Pastor Jason.
Sweating. Well, you're not preaching unless you sweat. If you get some sweat, you got it going. Man, thank you for that message today. It was fire. I got to sit through both services of it, and I'm going to preach your message tonight. Actually, I'm kind of excited. It's really good. So tell me, what to remind everyone, because they're watching this on Monday or Wednesday or Friday. What was the big idea of that message?
Yeah, the big idea is whether you view your life through the lens of God being at the center of your life, or whether he's just kind of a supporting cast member in the story of your life. And if you view it with you being this like the star of your own movie, you're going to be very disillusioned, because when difficulties come and trials come, you're going to just be like, God, why are you letting me down and not making my life awesome all the time? Right?
Yeah.
But when you see like Joseph, who we studied today, we studied the very end of Joseph's life. He had the ability to kind of make sense of all the hardship he went through in his life. Remember, thrown into a pit by his brothers. They betrayed him, his own family. He had to go to be a slave in this guy Potiphar's house. And while he was there, he was falsely accused of trying to sexually assault this guy's wife. So then he got thrown into prison, like pretty much all the worst things that could take your life off track. But at the end of his life, he made this statement to his brothers, who he ended up having this kind of reunion with, that even though you intended to harm me, God turned it around for good to save a bunch of people's lives. And you'd have to watch the message or study in Genesis chapter 50 to see. But God used all the hardship, all the stuff that for many of us would make us believe there is no God. Right? Why did my own family betray me? Why did my husband divorce me? Why did I get fired from that job?
Why did my mom get cancer?
Like all those horrible things, right? And if you think that God's job is to be a supporting cast member of making your life awesome, you're going to be disillusioned. But when you see that God actually has a plan for your life that is far deeper than your comfort or your success or all that, it actually, in an interesting like twist of fate, like Joseph's, like makes you realize like my life is fulfilling. There is a God. He can work all this and turn it around for my good.
Yeah.
And when you get that, you see how God can take what the enemy meant for evil, or people who have hurt you or harmed you. They don't have control over your life. In fact, one of the truths we talked about today was that even when your life seems off course, even when it seems like other people have done things to hurt you, no one can really mess up your life or rob you from experiencing God's best. Like if anyone was having their life robbed, Joseph, his brothers betrayed him, prisoner, slavery, all this stuff, the very worst things that could happen. But no one could rob Joseph from this amazing, like, the wrap up. Really, it was actually most of his life. Even most of the story we see is him being in prison, being enslaved. But really, he lived to 110 years old. And most of those years were him like being used by God to save a bunch of people's lives as a leader in Egypt.
In this powerful way. I was thinking about it when you're talking about being the star of your own story or being a bit player in God's story. I think a lot of times people, it just dawned on me because I was reading it in my devotions today. A lot of people, like, they think, well, I'm not Joseph. I'm not a ruler. I'm not a preacher. I'm not like someone up front. My life is small and insignificant. And I was reading in the Message today, and at the beginning of the book of Ruth, Eugene Peterson talks about how, God uses guys, bold people like Joshua and Joseph, but he also uses
the big heroes.
But Ruth was a widowed immigrant woman. Mm-hmm. And God uses very plain people in his story too, to save people, to redeem people, to mend things and all of that. So this message really is for all people.
Yeah.
Right?
I think it was Louis Giglio who said, like, you can be the star of your own tiny little story.
Yeah.
And you might think you're a big deal.
Yeah.
Right?
And you'll be forgotten.
You'll be nothing.
Yeah.
But all of us are just supporting cast members. And that's the counterintuitive, ironic thing. When you're just content serving God's purpose, your life's going to be way more impactful than anything you could do on your own.
Yeah, in 150 AD, there was a guy named Antiochus Epiphanes who was supposed to be the ruler of the whole world.
You only say that kind of stuff if you have a doctorate.
No one knows who he is or cares. I'm just trying to make the point. Like,
we do.
If you want to star in your story, no one's going to care in the end. But if you want to play a bit part in God's story. So you had 3 points, and I want to get to those. The first one was life only makes sense when I put God in first place. And give them that heliocentric.
Yeah, we made the comparison to like how prior to the 16th century, everybody kind of accepted that the Earth was the center of the solar system. But then the seasons didn't make sense. The Earth's rotation and the tilt of the
calendars
Earth.
weren't making sense.
None of that.
Yeah.
But then Copernicus, and then it was affirmed, I think, through Galileo in 1610 with a telescope that like, oh, the sun is at the center of the solar system, not the Earth. And so now everything mathematically makes sense.
Look at you, Copernicus, Galileo, knowing the dates. Call you Dr. Graves. Anyways.
Google. But the same is true in our life. So when we see the world through this lens of like we're at the center, it's called the anthropocentric view. Man is at the center, and God is just like out there like a star to kind of help out.
Yeah.
Not the star, like a star.
Yeah.
But when you realize God's at the center and we're like rotating around him, life makes sense. And that's when you're actually the most fulfilled.
There you go. Number two.
Number two was, even when my life seems off course, God can always turn it around. And we need that assurance because the whole world feels off course. You know, no one is untouched with like trials and hardships and things. And so a lot of times we can feel like other people made our life go off course, or circumstances like we talked about when our wives got cancer. You know, it was like, man, our whole life shift. But God, in powerful ways with your wife and my wife, by the way, both of our wives are 5 years now post being diagnosed with cancer. And the way that God has changed and transformed our lives through even the worst kinds of things, he can turn it around for everybody.
Yeah.
And then last one, no one can make me miss God's best for my life but me. And this is basically the reality that even if you got thrown into prison, even if you got sold into all those horrible things, God still blessed Joseph's life and made it powerful and impactful. And the same is true for us. The only one that can rob us of God's best.
Yeah, you're ridiculously in charge of that. Exactly. Yep. So guys, the Bible study is through that last chapter of Genesis. I have you jump to Romans, use some of the verses that he did. Enjoy your time in the study, talk about what you learned in the sermon, and get into God's word and go be the church. God bless you guys.
God bless you. Thanks for letting me be a part.